welcome everyone. We're in Build Grand Central, so thank you, Build. My name is Gemma Sole. I'm co-founder of 19th Amendment. Because everyone asks, I will give you a quick rundown of what we do. So we're a marketplace and manufacturing service for independent designers to pre-sell collections and then have them made on demand in the US. So what that means is basically designers can upload tech packs and product specs into our system. They can put them up for sale for 19 days and beyond, and anything that sells they can either hold in inventory, but we do not recommend that, and have it made in the US on demand. So that's kind of the baseline of what we do, and we can always talk more about that later. But what we're really here to talk about today is kind of the atmosphere around retail and buying at the moment. And we're going to kind of do that through storytelling through Katja's experience. So let me get my little cheat sheet because she's so accomplished I had to write this down. Okay, so I initially met Katja, actually, while we were just talking about this. She saw Amanda speak, interested in model, and then we had an amazing conversation basically about how the future of retail is really moving toward kind of an inventory-less model. If you've seen what Nordstrom is doing, we were just talking about this. Very interesting things are happening in retail. I got to see Gary Vaynerchuk speak. Does anyone know who Gary Vaynerchuk is? Okay, a couple people. Not really into fashion at all, but someone asked him what's the most interesting industry at the moment, and he said retail. Why? Because there's so much happening and so much kind of dynamic change that there's a lot of opportunity. So back to Katja. So she contacted me, and we had a really great conversation about basically what was happening and the different forces and experience at larger companies versus smaller companies. She has a master's from SDA Bocconi, is that right, in Milan, and a background working in Switzerland's largest luxury retailer. She was also the first hire by Natalie Massenet of Net-a-Porter for Mr. Porter. And so she has a background doing not only buying for kind of traditional retailers, but also first of their kind e-commerce retailers. So all of you probably know what Net-a-Porter is, but it's gone on to be acquired by Teague. I think it does something like, let's see, I wrote this down, 1.4 billion in revenue last year. So really, really big companies and really interesting stuff going on there. But what we're going to talk about now is not only her past doing that, but also working with independent brands and kind of what she's learned along her journey from working with brands that get something like 24 million views monthly to 2.5K views monthly. So the difference between those, both operationally and from a business building perspective. So I'm going to let you jump in and tell a little bit about your background. We only have one mic, so I'm going to offer the hand it to you now.
Thank you. Thank you first, Gemma, for having me here. Thank you, Amanda. I very much appreciate. And so let's just jump in and start with a couple of experiences I had working for these companies and why they are useful in the job I'm doing now, being a consultant and helping designers build the visibility and reach of their brand. So first, I worked, as Gemma said, but I worked I had a master in fashion management, and I worked at Costume National, which is a medium-sized luxury company in Milan. And I worked there in communication as the head of assistant to the head of communication. And at the time, the only way for brands to advertise was in magazines or fashion shows or celebrity product placement. And I think from my time there, I learned how important it is for a brand to build an image in the head of the consumers they want to reach. So how important it is to have always a consistent image in everything you do. And this helps me very much, for example, when I advise designers on their Instagram account to help them have on-point images for reaching the target audience. After that, working at Net-a-Porter, I must say that the first thing when I started there, I had to do was to convince the board of directors to get money for the project, for the Mr. Porter project. And what I thought was very fascinating is to see that Natalie with Mr. Porter was really filling a gap in the market, because lots of her women customers had heard their husband saying, we would like to do exactly the same as you, order our clothes online, get them delivered, have a curated selection of clothing online we can buy from. And then starting from there, Natalie thought there is really a need for such a business. And then she started looking for ideas for an aesthetics for Mr. Porter. And I think this was very interesting, because then when I listened at her presenting to the board of directors her concept, and she was so invested, so sure of what she was doing, and also she knew that she was filling a gap. I think this was very interesting to see how a successful brand starts. And in my opinion, a successful brands mean that it needs to fill in a gap there is somewhere in the market and fulfill a need from the customers, because then you will be unique and remembered.
So I'll jump in with a question, and maybe I'll just give you this to keep, and I'll just kind of yell things in your ear, so we don't have to hand it off. But so that's a great insight, I think. One of the things we talked about when we talked on the phone was how you help brands kind of identify that one thing that they're doing really well and kind of build off of that. Can you talk a little bit about how you help brands figure that out, and what you kind of see that end up being, if it falls in particular categories, or if you really see a breadth in that storytelling?
So this, when we spoke with Gemma, I think that's what I call maximizing brand assets. That's what you meant. Okay, cool. So basically, I'll give you an example of brand assets. Gucci has a very deep archive, obviously, and some of their brand assets are, for example, the very distinctive colors of the logo, the red, green, and brown. Everyone knows that. Or the flat chain they have on their bags, or what else? The Gucci logo, the Intrecciato C, which is very recognizable. And if you look at what the creative director Alessandro Michele is doing at the moment, he's very heavily leveraging on the brand assets for creating new bags, of course, with new shapes, but always very recognizable to the brands. So that's a typical example of leveraging on brand assets. Now I give you another example of a brand I have worked with. So Calamari handbag, it's two ladies coming from Colombia, and they do very nice handbags. So the handbags are produced in a farm. And after asking to the producer, they have been able to understand that with still a very good markup, that the farm is able to produce one bag at a time. So what they have done is they have created a bespoke section on their website, allowing the customer to completely customize their bag and being able to have a unique bag for the same price as a Kate Spade or Michael Kors bag, which I think is very interesting, because clearly this is a way of maximizing brand assets. And I think young designers or emerging brands or very often perhaps don't realize that they always have something that they're really good at. And when they start a brand, this is really something you have to leverage on heavily in order to stand out. No, but I think it can be, the story is a very good one. Because I think very often the story of a designer is something very unique and if the person is passionate enough, I think it's something which can really strike a chord in someone and convince even big buyers to buy a collection. You know, I take an example, but there was a brand I used to work with when I was at Net-a-Porter, the jeans shop. And the founder was absolutely passionate about washing the different washes of the jean. He has spent all his summer when he was young and studying in jean shops, and he know everything. And I think this was really clearly for a buyer to hear that. I think it's very important to have a good story to tell. And often the story is as important as the product, I would say.
Right. So I was going to wait for this one. Another thing that we talked about was the idea of like selling speak. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on the importance of selling speak.
So I will take.
I mean, I would use it.
Okay. So I will take that example. You know, buyers go to fairs, for example, PT1, you know, and you have the 70th brand you have seen during the day, you know, everyone is tired. It's the end of the day, you know, and you stop in a corner where someone is displaying a clothing collection. I think, frankly, the speech they will deliver, as I said, is as important as the clothes. And what I think is really important, if you're talking to a buyer or even to your best friend, because each time you talk about your brand, you have to think at the person as a potential customer. You know, your best friend, but it can be also to a potential business partner or to anyone. So the first thing is the tone. I think it's very important to be passionate and confident in what you say. And what I mean exactly is, you know, if it's the 50th time you're saying that in a day, it's still very important to be passionate and to be convincing in the tone. Then the second very important thing is to have something genuine in your story. A real passion for the product, a real knowledge of it, a real, you know, it must strike a sensitive chord, because fashion is an industry of will, not an industry of need. This is something you really have to think of. Then the other thing is you need to know your product very, very well. That's really important too. Because if you don't know your product well, even if you deliver an amazing speech, no one will believe in what you say. And then I think the last two things don't need to be in the direct speech, but in case someone goes a bit further with you in the discussion, you need to know where you want to be in a couple of years' time. I think this is very important, because a brand, like fashion professional, will only invest in a brand if they know this is going to last. And finally, you need to be on top of your logistics. You need to know exactly how you want to plan your deliveries, what is the yearly program, how, you know, this is also be able to reply to logistic questions.
Yeah, I think you brought up a couple of really good points. One is like that you actually have to plan a lot, and annually is a good way of doing it. I think a lot of companies, and maybe startups a little bit too, they've gotten a little bit lazy about really setting those roadmaps and those goals and planning those things out, but definitely having that idea and being able to speak to it in a very confident way is important. So all very helpful. I think one thing that I always like to throw in there that you didn't mention is smiling is a good thing. So if you're talking to someone about your brand, don't forget to smile. I don't always do this, and it's something that is good to remember, but you'd be amazed at how much more will happen when you smile. So I'll just throw that in there. But just to kind of go back a little bit, so you've had experience both in Europe and in the US. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the difference between those customers? We see a lot of brands coming from Europe that want to break into the US market that may or may not always be the best idea for their brand, but just based okay, strong opinions, but based on what you see, and can you speak a little bit to that?
So first, I think perhaps what is important to mention is at Net-a-Porter, the average size basket from one customer, from the US and the European customer was about the same. So that's one point. Now what was very different is what was in the basket. Usually Americans tend to dress more casual. Just to give you an example, but you know, when going to eat with my friends in Geneva or in London, I would very rarely wear my sports clothes if we meet in central London or in Geneva. Instead, in the US, very often you can wear your gym clothes to go basically everywhere. So first point, if you're really very, very casual, probably your better chances are here. Or you have more, yeah. So that's one thing. Then another one is that from what I have seen, the Europeans are more in general now. That's very general. It's not everyone, but more fashion savvy than Americans, and they know naturally better how to mix and match clothes. Instead, Americans are slightly more casual, and this clearly reflects in the way buyers buy for both continents, because you would buy probably more jeans and t-shirts for the US, and you will buy more of each size. Instead, in Europe, you will buy much more styles, but slightly less of each size.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yes. Question for you. Do you have like an idea right now of what that proportion is among buyers between? I mean, and I know they specialize obviously, but if you think about the SKUs across retailers, what they are like, you know, how they're buying for like denim versus athleisure versus like contemporary women's, how that proportionally is changing. Like,
I think there is definitely a trend everywhere going to athleisure anyways. You know, I think Stella McCartney, for example, for Adidas, started in the UK and it's big here, it's big there. So I think there is a tendency, but now I would say definitely if you look also historically, designers all come from Europe. I mean high-end designers. I'm not talking about mid-market, because probably here, Michael Kors, Teague, and YK, you have a lot of them. But now, if you look at all the couture and tailoring designers, definitely in Europe. So this doesn't give you an exact proportion, but I think it can give you a very good idea of the general kind of landscape.
and when you're working with new brands, do you think about like the location of the market of the brand based on the like propensity where that item is in a specific place? So like for example, in New York, being a swimwear designer and thinking about how their market is versus like being an outerwear designer.
I think that's a very interesting question, and it's this, like my answer to that would be that if you're a small designer, very often you have only one warehouse, obviously.
Right.
And you have one place to ship from, and it's a really big cost to ship overseas. So I would say if you really want to test different markets, the best way probably would be to try to enter to one of these big retailers, because they are able to give you then the sales by region, which can be a really good information for you to discover new markets and have with a minimal cost to be able to discover a new market, and after, once you know your product has a chance to sell there, to invest.
Right.
Because the cost obviously of shipping and warehouse is big.
Kind of. I would say kind of most brands that are just starting out these days, they won't like just starting out don't traditionally warehouse, right? In the sense that we're talking about. So I guess like in terms of buying, are you seeing any other, and maybe not at the larger retailer level, but maybe at the smaller boutique level, any other trends around what's changing
So from what I see, what is changing most is because of Instagram. There is because you have to think that fashion shows before were only for fashion professionals. So they were for press people, for buyers, and for clients. So basically, and then the images of the shows were featured 6 months after the show, at the same time the collection hits the store. Now what's happening with Instagram is that you can see the shows almost live, almost, I think, with perhaps 1 hour delay, just the time for Susie Menkes for someone to post the show on her. So I think what has changed a lot is kind of the instantaneity and the fact that people have access to the product straight and want the product straight away. And of course, with fast fashion retailers, they give you the opportunity to buy 3 weeks after you have seen it on the show. I mean, I'm talking about Zara and H&M because they're all doing that. So what I really see is that the fashion world is trying to adapt to that, but the infrastructures of the production for big fashion houses are so slow and so big that it's really difficult to adapt to that. And I think typically that's a really good opportunity for smaller fashion brands and for designers to create something customers are able to buy straight away.
Yeah. So based on kind of everything that you just brought up, which are all great points, when you're talking to designers and brands about collection planning, how would you advise or suggest that they even start thinking about that with all these moving pieces and parts and the instantaneousness of
So first, I think when you plan your collection, you need to have your customer in mind and really study carefully how does she buy clothes. That's the first thing. You know, if you discover she wants something new every month, if she is buying seasonally, I think that's the first question you need to answer, is who is your customer? Yeah, that's the first thing. Then I can give you, because also you have to think that this will determine the cash you get, the flow of the product. So it's really important for you because you need to have enough to invest for the next collection and so forth and so on. So that's something very important to have in mind. And now if I can give you some tips probably, is that millennials want goods more often, probably. And but still all women have some pieces, you know, as a black jeans or a black leggings, or they will always want to wear. So I think these items, for example, you can call them continuity. You can have them, there are some items you never need to have out of style and continuity products. So these products some product can be the core of your collection or side to your collection, but on these products you never need to do sales. And the customer will always know that she finds them at your place, which can be really good because it allows you to keep a high margin on these items and you never need to discount them. So that would be one way. Then eventually what you can also do is create exclusive styles for an occasion, because this is also a good way, and you do very few styles because this is a good way of keeping excitement and then produce them on demand. This is 19th Amendment is a very good way. No, but it's true of doing that. Yeah, and then there are other tips, but these are probably harder to implement. But for example, I noticed when I was at Mr. Porter, sometimes creating scarcity can be really interesting. It can be really good. Because if you advertise a lot for something and then not all the people who want it can get it, I think this can create really a bigger will for customers to get the goods and can increase I think Supreme are very much playing on that, for example. Yeah. You know, so that's like really planning the collection planning.
Well, I think those were all my questions. So I think we've gone pretty deep so far, but I'd love to open it up to kind of the audience to see if you guys have any specific questions about anything that we talked about or anything that we didn't cover.
What are the top few things that small brands do starting off that they should focus on?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, so what's your name? Paulette asked what I see as a recurrent mistake young designers are doing. Okay, so a mistake because what I see very often is young designers have their own site, their Instagram, and then they think the customer will just come. So I think it's it can be true, but it's rarely very true. I think in order to really create sales, you can also try to use some more traditional ways of getting attention. For example, never forget that you can always send to some to media or to some information about your brand. You can. And I think this can be because if they think your business model is smart or you have a good story, they will for free write an article, because you never have to forget that buyers or media, they also always looking for something new. So it's not that they don't want, they want to know, but they just will take the best, basically.
I think another underutilized trick is actually just, this will sound really obvious to everyone, but just to send paper things. So like one thing that we found really well with press, but also with investors, etc., or partners even, is to actually just send them a physical copy, like a certified mail copy of whatever you want to show them. So whether it's your launch sheet or whether it's a press release or, if you really want to send them product, but you probably don't need to, because by actually physically sending it to them, they, it so rarely happens anymore that like they usually open it and you'll usually get a response because the novelty of paper is just like, it's just so unusual, and you really can, like your hit rate might not be great, but you'll actually find it's probably a lot better than just sending emails. So like if you're willing to spend like an afternoon or a day to just, plan that out and then of course print it out and then go to the post office, like you'll find that you actually might make some really interesting connections that way. We had an opportunity to do that actually with Carol Merowitz, the CEO of TJ Maxx, who's like the former CEO. Just sent her a paper copy of what we were doing, let her know, wanted to talk to her about it, and she got back. So like you really, and you can always, if they're very high up, it's actually easier because you can just send it to the secretary of so-and-so, and the secretary will always open their mails. At least you're like halfway there. Yeah, definitely more tips.
I was just thinking, perhaps I should give you also some tips how to reach buyers.
Yes.
Yeah, so first, I think you try to reach them between seasons, because when they're out there on the market, at the fairs, at the show, they hardly even read their emails.
And for those of us that aren't full-time in retail, what is that?
Okay, so this is from basically you have to try, I think October is a very good month. October, and then May.
Okay.
It's short, but this is a good time. And then another thing is, don't always try for the most senior people. Perhaps try for the junior buyer, because they really have to prove themselves. I have been there. So, if you come with a nice, good new designer, I think, and the other thing is, look at, don't try every retailer. Do some research. Try to find the retailers which correspond the most to the product you offer. Because some brands approached us at Mr. Porter, we liked it, but it was not in mind at all with what we were doing, And also, for example, online, it's really easy to do, but check the new brands and category of products they buy. because now more and more people or brands, multi-brand stores, even Bird of Goodman and others, are extending to grooming, candles, home goods, whatever, books. Yeah, so that can also be something interesting. Think a bit outside of the box.
And when you were a buyer, what was the best sales pitch you got? Do you remember?
Yeah, the best sales. Yeah, I think once I bought something. It was a lady, her name is Selima, and she has a shop here in New York, Selima Optic, and we were not supposed at all to buy that brand. It was a really small random brand. And but of course the product has to be there. So the sunglasses were very nice, but just the way she talked about the brand, and she was so passionate about the materials she was using, and that she was able to even sell to Ralph Lauren. And I think, but just really the way she was so invested in what she was doing. Yeah, I was very impressed. I bought the whole collection.
Oh, wow. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand, so I'm a designer.
Sorry, what do you design?
I'm a print designer, and so I'm trying to figure out who my pin customer is. And so when I put a collection together, should I think about, so I'm not crazy not putting this all together, but should I think about most customers probably just buy that one element and partner up with somebody who wants to build a collection that's not all pins, or just trying to get a grasp of how I should think about it.
So I think that would be probably the best way would be for you to, try to find other brands who do the equivalent to what you do, and then try to find in which store they distribute this product, and spend some time at the store looking at how the customers interact with the product. Because I think that's something I used to work in a shop, and for me it's really useful until this day, because when I have designers conceive their samples, very often designers don't think of practicality but only about aesthetics. And I think this is really, really, because for example, ski wear, if you don't have a space for the ski pass, no one will buy your jacket. It's just an example, but I think for you, it would be really to find where you can have potential or similar customers to your brand, and see how they interact with the product, and even ask them perhaps, something. I'm sorry, yeah.
Did that answer your question?
I guess yes, but also just how do I learn specific
Well, designers, right? There are some designers that don't know how to make their own prints necessarily, custom design prints. So you can look for opportunities to collaborate with designers. I think there are some print marketplaces as well, if I'm not mistaken. So you can upload your prints there and try to resell them. It's going to be hard because you're kind of 2 steps removed from the customer, and you've got the designer in the middle you've got to almost sell to them and then give them enough to work with to upsell your print to the customer, right? So you've got to figure out a way to tell that story even better about the print. I don't know if that makes sense.
I see there is a question there. Yeah, go. Yeah, go. How the follow-up for the buyer. Okay, so what I said earlier is very true. I think, as a buyer, you have to think, that you have one big closet and you have to offer enough jeans, tops, jackets, So sometimes you really like a brand, but just at that moment it doesn't fit in your portfolio. So what I would recommend is don't call them every day because they will hate you. But like everything, there is something new about your brand. You have a new collection, a sample. You have an article in the press. Something which really enhances your brand. Then you can send them a reminder. If you at a fair, for example, and they're coming, send them in the morning a texto. Just come to booth number XYZ, I will be there. Or if they are in town, come by my showroom. So, and just to remind them that you're there, you're still doing something, and just one day it can happen. Don't think it's a no. If they showed interest, it means they're interested. It might be just not the right time for them to buy your brand.
Did they give you any feedback? Okay.
It's hard.
That's another good example too of, send them something in the mail once a quarter. Just like put some glitter inside. Make a place that you can kind of stand out and, it doesn't have to be glitter. That's fine. So yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
If I wanted to break into the European market, what do you suggest doing trade shows here in the US, in New York, or London, and which ones?
Okay, so if you want to break in the European market, I would definitely recommend to take a list of the trade shows in Europe and then look at the retailers who go to these trade shows. And going from there, decide which trade shows to go to. Because the trade shows have to tell you which retailers are going, And then also, I think for trade shows, it's very important to really ask be in touch with the salesperson who work at the trade show to get a really good spot, do some research, for example, which brands are around you, because this is really important, the location at a trade show. And I can help you. No, but I know some European trade shows, so in case I can give you, I just need to see your product, that I can probably tell you a little bit more which ones, best for you.
I think too, just having, Europe is such a big, different place these days that having like a local market you want to start in, and as well, depending on your language skills, like a lot of times I would suggest going somewhere where you fluently speak the language. You've had a couple designers who have tried to, look at exploring markets like Japan, etc. I think what they found is with having no knowledge of the language, it's very hard to talk to buyers and to have that professional level of conversation. So if you don't have someone who speaks the language in a professional way, you might want to start with
Or you associate yourself with someone who does, That's, yeah, exactly. You can do that, or showrooms or something. I don't know, but that's also an option.
And I would also recommend too, if you're thinking about local markets, try and talk to designers in those markets before you go over and make friends with them and get kind of their sense of the space too, because like we were talking about, buyers and the customers are very different. Yeah.
So what kind of, to get a boutique, like I've tried to get into boutiques and usually what I do is I do my research to see who fits my price point, who fits my aesthetic. And what I usually do is what I've done is I go visit them, I have my print literature and stuff. So what I do is I always wear my pieces. And then I walk in the store and I pretend to shop. 9 times out of 10, they will approach me about what I'm wearing because they like it so much. And so that makes it an easy segue for me to say, oh, that's why I'm here.
That's great. I like that.
But I still have yet to get an order. Like I tell
all, you know, I go, okay, this is, like, a lot of the things are, like, made up of special content, this is made in USA, or discovered in Belgium, you know, like, trying to, you know, build up what the, you know, behind it. I did have one place in Chicago actually took a picture. I had one place take pictures of things. Then when it, you know, then I read it, now we have literature, I have front literature and a line sheet and everything. Then I go in and I did it. When I did it before market week because I was afraid they'd spend up all their money. So I did it before market. I did it before market week, like a week and a half. And I did ask which trade show they went to, just so I could have an idea of like what trade show I thought I would fit into. But then I would follow up, and every email I ever send and snail mail, which I also send, I always included photographs. Always. Still not in order. Like, is there like some kind of negotiating or like how I've offered trunk shows on the ones that I can drive back to?
I mean, sorry, but I would have to spend some time with you also, you know, looking at what you exactly show, your samples, kind of the speech you deliver when you're there. Because just from, I mean, you seem to do everything right from what I'm hearing from an organizational point of view. Now, perhaps there is something in the branding, perhaps there is something in the product, perhaps. So I think this is the more, how do you say, but perhaps I would have to.
There's something you
Yeah.
just can't tell or just keep.
Yeah.
Like right now, what I'm going to do is I'm not even going to send them like it's not sales stuff, but like I got recently, it's got featured in a big blog that 19th Amendment like kind of did that introduction. I also got pictured in a local fashion magazine.
But then it's gonna come.
Yeah. So then
It takes a,
keep
yeah.
sending them this. Yeah. I'm doing this.
Yeah, but that's good. I think frankly it's because as I said, you know, it's not gonna come over the night, you know. But I think persistency, you seem to have been thinking through your techniques. I mean, as I said, probably there is always something you can improve here and there. But
I want to ask you a question about May. Like if I, like you know, because you said October is a good time, so that's after market. So in May, if we were to try to reach out to people because you know it's not during fashion week, I would think that I'd be reaching out to them for fall orders. They've already like spent a lot of their money, or are they kind of
yeah,
holding back a little
basically
bit?
that's when they have spent all the money and they start doing all the research for the following summer. So that's a good time, you know, because if the brand will have you in mind, the buyer will have you in mind, you know, then when they think of their portfolio, they eventually can think of a place where they know you exist. You know, because that's when they do the budget, and the best way to enter a budget is to be there before it's done.
Right. Okay, so October you would be doing, like if I contact them now, it would be for fall.
Exactly.
2018. Okay.
Yeah. For big retailers, because boutiques sometimes work slightly differently.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think the thing to keep in mind too is like that saying, like, it took me 7 years to become an overnight success.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and especially in retail environments, like, they usually want to see that consistency and see your face coming back and the product continuously delivered before they
And improving.
Yeah.
It's very important to always improve the product because that's something extremely important too. Innovation, no complacency in that business, no space for it.
Any other questions? Yeah. So you mentioned like strategies like you go to websites like Instagram. Usually when like there's young artists like going on Instagram, they usually get people who follow them, but there are other companies that just want followers. So like how do you keep followers and get many followers that companies?
Yeah, I think how to get genuine followers is you need to deliver good content. That's and consistent aesthetic and good content. I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but it's you know, for example, one good way is, for example, when you define your brand, your customer, everything, think of some colors which correspond very well to your brand. And then not each picture, but keep this kind of range of colors in your Instagram, because it will, and on your website and on your logo, because all this will, each time I think Mansour Gabriel are doing this very well, because each time I see a picture without even knowing it's them, I will recognize it on the Instagram. You know, I think that's a really good example. So, you know, choose carefully your colors, your shapes, your style, and then keep it consistent across everything which will touch the customer.
Right, your filters. The other thing I would add is like, being consistent is just probably the most important thing. But then outside of consistency, if you're looking at other brands to partner with, just take a look at the following, but also like the level of engagement by post. Instagram's changed a lot. It's a lot easier to. There's a lot more people kind of gamifying it. So what we find is like a lot of like bloggers these days will be involved in like pods, which designers can also use. You can also have designer pods, but so they'll have like an inflated following for the amount of engagement, or like all their followers are also bloggers, so like they're not necessarily shoppers with the intent to purchase. So just like being very thinking about the comments that you have on your own Instagram and what people you're thinking about partnering with and what people are responding to and stuff like that. Build on your question. Well, one more question? Okay.
I think now they start to think at the fall winter 18 budget. They because the big strategy meetings usually take place before the pre-collections, which are in November. So that's now would be the right time.
Like what level of retailer are you thinking of?
Exactly, like Bird of Goodman.
Okay.
Even I would say probably Bloomingdale. Net-a-Porter, Matches, Model Gabardine, all these retailers.
Oh, okay, last one. And then
how do you find the junior buyer?
Okay, so LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very, very, very powerful for that. Frankly, you type like Net-a-Porter jewelry buyer, you get something.
or you can
Frankly.
be even more hackery about it and get this widget called doesnt, SOUP, and basically you type in the title that you want, and it will just run through all your second, third degree contacts automatically and generate a list for you to export. And then you can. There's a lot of ways that you can.
Yeah, and don't forget that they are also looking for new brands.
Yeah.
No, but that's something very important to keep in mind.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes. Yes. I would always like brands, designers, or startups as well. So there's a lot of. I would always encourage you looking at literature around like hacking things because a lot of these things starting out are very much B2B kind of conversations that you're having, and they can be done at scale in a lot more cost-effective ways than just one person. So, like, these are all little things that we're happy to share wisdom of nuggets.
Just one other thing is very often it's at and then the name of the company. So if you find the name, put the name and then at the company. You try with a dot, without the dot, with the niche.
Yes.
And it will work eventually.
All right, one more question from you because you haven't said that.
I have a question about your position. You're a consultant for small designers. One of the things about being a small designer is that your resources are quite small. And I think I want to hire you, but I think it might be too expensive for me.
No, but frankly, I mean.
And I'm just wondering, like, what's the bang for the bucks? We spend a lot of time on resourcing fabric, a lot of time on labor, especially when I manufacture in New York, on sending things out, marketing, PR, all this other stuff. So what do you bring to the table
Okay, so basically what I help brands with a little bit of everything I have said. So first, I will help with the alignment of the brand in the sense like, the social media, the website, the branding, that. And then exactly look at the assets you have, how you can improve, and then look at the sample collection and then starting from there, look at different strategy where you should go for increasing the visibility of your brand. Now what I offer, and I say to everyone, is a free initial consultation. So I have business cards. I'm more than happy to give them to you, and probably Gemma also can give you my contact in case. And then I offer an initial free consultation, and then I usually offer my services by the hour or by contract. It depends. It really depends. It's really made to measure because every designer is different, every case is different. But what I can say is that there has been a case where someone needs my services and we haven't been able to find a way of working together. That's
And I think a lot of the things that you were talking about, I'm going to do a plug now, but 19th Amendment can help with. We have a couple of designers here that participate, for example, in our stylist closet, which is just, a closet where press and stylists come in full pieces and we just have it all in-house. So it's easier for the stylist, it's easier for the designer, amongst other things like sourcing and a lot of those things. So if it's something where you're in a time crunch or you don't want to have to deal with individual stylist contracts and things like that, there are ways then where like as an individual designer it's a pain, but when it's like, you're operating on behalf of a bunch of brands, it makes it a lot easier for everyone, including the people that want to pull for you or from you. So there's ways you can like kind of optimize your personal time. You just have to be smart about it. Cool. Well, thanks everybody. It's 8. I saw some yawns, so. Okay, one more question. One more. That's the last one. Last one.
So for international buyers trying to enter the American market,
Are you a buyer?
I'm sorry, designer.
Oh, got it.
So for international designers trying to enter the American market, what are the few things that, where to start from? What are the few things that you should keep in mind if you're trying to approach the American market? Should we go to a buyer? Should we go to a retail company?
Do you want to start? You can start. Do you want me to start?
Should we do it?
Yeah, that might be a good private one. It's kind of there's a lot of,
Come to us, we answer.
Yes.
So everyone
yes,
can
we'll let
match.
everyone go. But yeah, if you'd like to learn more information, we'll be sending out an email after this just to kind of share Katja's contact. And then if you have any other questions, we're going to kind of just chill out. I'll turn the music back on for a little bit longer, and you can feel free to kind of talk amongst yourselves or ask us anything else. So thanks so much for coming, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and
Thanks for your question.